Today, we're diving into what I call a draw along, where you watch a time lapse of me sketching and I talk to you about different art topics. Today, we're going to just start with perfectionism and references, and let's dive into it. So, when it comes to references, it's very important to remember that you use references to build your visual library in your mind. And I think a lot of early artists struggle to understand how to really use reference and how it helps you improve in your overall ability over time. Reference is very good to use when you're sketching and when you're trying to learn new things, right? Sometimes we have trouble posing our characters, and sometimes we don't even know how those characters need to look. And so part of the exploration process of being an artist then is looking at your world around you and either drawing things that you don't know how to draw from your mind, or drawing things that you do know how to draw, but you need just a reminder of how they're shaped, how they look in space, how they do different things. And so, actually, with these videos, I'm going to include every reference piece that I use for the sketching session, so that way you can sketch along, so that you can also enjoy the fruits of practice and execution. I think one of the things that's really interesting about references, it gives us an ability to outsource a bit of what we don't know. A lot of the time, art is a question of what you don't know. And so reference allows you to figure out how to put different pieces, different aspects of the world around you into what's going on the page. And I think the nice thing about kind of doing some sketch sessions between big projects is that it gives you a chance to draw the way that feels right for the moment. You'll see with a lot of the work here that they're not very good. They're not great sketches. They're messy, but it's more about the exploration of trying to find the lines, trying to find the overall shapes of something, and just teaching myself to see what I'm looking at, and to identify where things are, what they do, how they augment a character, how they help give the character some presence. And that is ultimately the role of reference, is to take some of the mental load off your imagination so that you can essentially run wild. And you'll see with some of these that I went really specific to the reference, but on this last, not this one, but the last part of this session that you'll watch, I break from the reference, mainly because I didn't like the pose, but I realized that I was drawing the wrong character for the reference that I was using, and so it gave me an opportunity to kind of restart and refigure out what and who I wanted to draw at the time. And that's kind of the role of reference, right? Because if you weren't using reference, you might not make the connection. Oh, you know what? This is hard because I'm not drawing the right person for this. And I have a variety of original characters that I'm working on for a comic that I'm doing in the background here, as I juggle being a stay-at-home parent and improving in my art skill. And one of the things that I find nice about having a lot of different characters in this comic universe is it gives me a chance to put different concrete characters into what I'm working on in a way that allows me to flesh them out without having to write them, and without having to write dialogue. I can find how my happy-go-lucky goblin-ish character does when he's looking violent, or when he's looking tough. And likewise, it's a great way for me to find out which of my characters who might be more tough and reserved, to see them kind of let down. And that's the power of reference. You kind of figure out what works best and find new ways to flesh out your characters. And so I'm always a big believer in using reference. I also find that if you're someone who struggles to work through getting consistently decent sketches, that reference can help that, because you're working off something, and that enables you to outsource some of the work of finding the right lines and finding the right shapes, and that's really important to learn how to do, and the reference helps you do that. And so what you'll see here with this particular, I just wanted to quick paint in some very, very rough shadow shapes from that image, just to kind of get a feel for how they might sit on a very muscular character like that. Obviously, I missed her tattoos. I didn't color her in any way, shape, or form. But that was kind of the goal, was to just spend a little bit more time on that particular sketch. So that's kind of like my routine, is I do 2 or 3 kind of faster sketch characters, just laying in some quick lines, getting in a nice amount of shape and kind of volumetric language, and then I move on to the next thing. And so you'll see here, that's where I started to realize that I was picking the wrong character for this role, or for this reference, because I couldn't quite find where the arms were supposed to go on the character I had in my head, and her name is Lila. And then I realized, as I started drawing in her clothing, that it still wasn't right. Didn't feel, I wasn't sure what to do with her. She has like an energy pistol and a sleeveless jacket and big cargo pants and spiky hair, and I realized that this particular reference that I was using just wasn't quite right. And it's funny, because I remember using this reference when I first was creating this character, and it worked well, but then I've changed Lila's overall design and attitude enough over the past couple months that I knew that it wasn't going to work. And so you'll see here that I was going through and trying to figure out the arms and where they should sit, and I realized that I was making a very what's the word? A very gangly pose for the character, and Lila's not gangly. And then I remembered that actually I have another character who this would be perfect for, a woman named Doll, who's an assassin with magnetically floating hands. And so that's where I realized that kind of playful, dangerous, kind of walking pose that she has for this reference would be very good for Doll. My own father is an artist, and we talk a lot about perfectionism and how important it is to listen to it, to keep you from settling for subpar work. But there does come a point where it becomes oppressive and difficult to work through and deal with. And so the importance of perfectionism then is to balance it. And so I know that I could have spent a really long time getting every single thing about this version of Doll right. I have better sketches of her in my sketchbook where I really took my time and really defined her shapes. Her mask in that sketch is far more angular, and her jacket's really, I mean, her jacket's pretty similar, but in both sketches. But the thing is that I could spend a long time like heavily tuning every part of her, but that's just not ultimately what I wanted to do with this sketch session. Sometimes you're not going to draw your characters perfectly, and it's important to kind of draw them how they come on different days, to get a better feel again of who they are, their line weights, how they look in different situations or just different poses. And so I spent a lot of time here um, making sure that I got the gist of her so that she would be recognizable. Say if I were drawing a little bit inconsistently in a comic book, but that she would still read as Doll. Because one of the troubles of comics is it's very difficult to accurately redraw a character from every angle. And so I wanted to make sure that she read like Doll to me, but that she was still, somewhat presentable as a finished sketch, if you will. And so that's kind of the other part of my sketch day process between projects is to make sure that I do a couple rough sketches and then one longer sketch that kind of features more effort, more work, something that is finished, even if it's not the best thing that I could have done that day. It's important to finish things because it helps cement a lot of what you're learning from the day. And so by finishing something, you're not only giving yourself something to look at, to reflect on, but also it helps you execute on what you were hoping to do in the first place. And so if I had succumbed to perfectionism here and gone through and tweaked every single little thing that I knew was wrong with this sketch, I would have found that it would have taken much longer. When it's supposed to be a sketch session, it's not supposed to be a long time. I drew for about an hour and 20-ish minutes. So this recording is sped up about 450%. But the thing that is difficult for me is that I really wanted to spend longer and really do it perfect. But at the same time, I don't think that I would have learned more by making it look super nice the way that I would like to present all of my work all of the time. I also wasn't drawing at a resolution scale where I could really make something incredibly nice. The last project I did, I drew on an A4 size, one character. I think it was 350 DPI. And it really vibrant colors, really nice shapes, really nice cell shading, shadows, in a similar process to what I'm doing here. But there's only so much quality you can derive from a pretty small canvas, and that's ultimately the point of doing these sketch days, is just to stay sharp, ignite some creativity, and move on with things. And so what you'll see here is when I finish this sketch in the video, it's a little bit different from what's on the thumbnail because there were a couple things that I couldn't ignore and that I wanted to go back and fix. First of all, like the shading underneath her right breast is wrong in this sketch, and so I spent a little bit of time afterwards going through and fixing not only the shaping of the coat, but making sure that she didn't look like she had massively lopsided breasts, because that's not what the character is. She's not. She doesn't look like that. And so I also fixed her hip. I realized that I had overdone that angle on her leg there. Reworked a couple of folds, and then also removed some of the glow lighting that I put in, and replaced it with just some kind of edge lighting with white. So that is ultimately kind of the process of my sketch days when I'm not working on a big project, is just working through stuff, performing at least hopefully competently. So the techniques that I've been working on, like the cell shading, like drawing faster and more accurately. And then, art is a process. It comes with improvement, comes with time, and it's definitely something that is important to do with care and do with thought. And in fact, if I had thought a bit more, I might not have made some of these mistakes, but I was just going with the flow today. And you'll actually see that I start spotting some of those things that weren't quite right with the piece. But we arrived at, it's something that I'm at least happy enough to put out there. Not necessarily something that I would want to put in my portfolio, but something that is at least of good enough quality that I feel like it was a successful drawing session, even if it wasn't something magnificent, or even my best. And that's kind of the part that I really want to drill down on is art is supposed to be about moving forward, improving, and not every day is going to be your best day. And a lot of times, a lot of times the days aren't going to be your best, and that's okay. And as long as you're taking the time to practice and learn and execute, that's what's important. And that's ultimately how these draw-alongs go. I talk over some of my art while I draw, usually a fast time lapse, and hopefully give you a bit of wisdom, give you a chance to draw along with me if you so wish. If you want to draw the same things that I drew, fantastic. That's what the reference is for. And if you want to do something else, that's great too. One thing that I would like to do with this channel going forward is a mix of draw-alongs and live streams. The live streams would be me working on other projects or maybe a sketch day, but giving you a chance to just chat and watch and ask me questions, and we can just hang out and do art, because art's fun, and it's what we need to do as artists and as creatives, to give ourselves, our souls, really an outlet to do something good for us. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.